Imagine this for a second. You are standing in a world with no refrigerators, no electricity, no plastic bottles, no preservatives. Milk spoils in hours. One mistake, one hot day, and your only source of nutrition turns toxic. For early humans, milk was not comfort food, it was a race against time. Now here is the twist. Instead of letting milk rot, humans somehow turned it into something that could survive weeks, months, even years. Something dense, portable, nourishing. Something so valuable that armies carried it, empires taxed it, monks perfected it, and entire cultures built identities around it. That miracle food was cheese. But cheese was not invented in a lab. It was not designed by chefs. It was not discovered by accident in a fairy tale. Cheese was born from necessity, biology, and survival intelligence. This is the real, myth-free origin story of cheese, how humanity hacked nature itself and changed food history forever. And yet, from this fragile liquid, humanity somehow created one of the most durable foods ever known. A food that could last through seasons, travel across continents, and become the backbone of entire cuisines. To understand why cheese exists at all, you have to understand the problem it solved. Milk is one of nature's most complete foods. It carries protein, fat, minerals, and energy in perfect balance. But it also comes with a fatal flaw: instability. In warm climates especially, raw milk begins breaking down almost immediately after milking. Bacteria multiply fast. Without cooling or processing, milk turns sour, separates, and becomes unsafe. That meant early humans faced a brutal reality. They could domesticate animals, but they could not store the milk those animals produced. Add to this another critical detail that often gets ignored. Most ancient adults were lactose intolerant. Once childhood ended, their bodies stopped producing enough lactase, the enzyme required to digest milk sugar. Drinking fresh milk caused cramps, bloating, and illness. So milk was not just fragile, it was biologically incompatible with most adults. Cheese emerged as the solution to both problems at once. By transforming milk, humans extended its life and made it digestible. Cheese was not luxury food, it was survival technology. Cheese could not appear until humans first learned to control animals. Around 9 to 8,000 years before the Common Era, human societies in different parts of the world began domesticating sheep, goats, and cattle. This was not a single global event. It happened independently in regions like the Fertile Crescent, Central Asia, and parts of Europe. At first, animals were valued primarily for meat and hides. Milk came later. Once people realized animals could provide nourishment repeatedly without being slaughtered, this was a revolutionary shift. Milk became a renewable resource. But that resource came with the same old problem: it did not last. Early dairy cultures experimented constantly. They heated milk, left it exposed to air, let it ferment naturally, mixed it with plants, and stored it in whatever containers were available. Many attempts failed. Some worked temporarily. Over time, patterns began to emerge. Certain methods slowed spoilage. Certain textures lasted longer. Humans were not following recipes. They were observing cause and effect. One of the most important discoveries came from how milk was stored. Early containers were often made from animal skins, gourds, clay vessels, and sometimes animal stomachs. The stomach lining of young ruminants contains natural enzymes, particularly rennet. When warm milk comes into contact with rennet, a predictable chemical reaction occurs. The milk separates into solid curds and liquid whey. This process was not mysterious, it was repeatable. Early humans noticed that these curds behaved differently from fresh milk. They lasted longer, they could be salted, they could be dried, they caused fewer digestive problems. Over generations, people learned how to trigger and control this transformation intentionally. Cheese was not discovered in a dramatic accident. It was refined slowly, through repeated observation and correction. Archaeology confirms this story. In regions of modern-day Poland, researchers uncovered pottery dating back more than 7,000 years, with small perforations along the surface. These were not decorative designs, they were functional strainers. Chemical analysis of residue inside these vessels revealed milk fats and whey separation, clear evidence of cheesemaking. Similar tools appeared in other parts of Europe and along the Adriatic coast. This tells us something crucial: cheese was not a rare experiment, it was a practice technique. By around 5500 BCE, humans were already separating curds from whey intentionally. The earliest cheeses were not aged or complex, they were fresh, acidic, lightly salted, and meant to be eaten quickly. Think closer to feta or paneer rather than modern cheddar. Simple, effective, and life-saving. As societies grew into civilizations, cheese moved beyond survival food and into structured economies. In Mesopotamia, some of the earliest written records mention cheese as part of rations, trade goods, and religious offerings. Cuneiform tablets describe different dairy products, showing that cheese was already categorized and valued. In ancient Egypt, wall paintings and burial goods reveal that cheese production was common enough to be included in tombs, suggesting it was considered valuable not just in life, but in the afterlife as well. In ancient Greece, cheese was fully integrated into daily life. Homer's Odyssey describes cheesemaking in detail, presenting it as familiar, routine knowledge. Cheese symbolized nourishment, hospitality, and strength. It was not exotic, it was essential. The Romans elevated cheese to another level. They standardized techniques, documented methods, and controlled aging environments. Romans understood that temperature, moisture, and time could transform cheese. As the Roman Empire expanded, cheese traveled with it. Military outposts, settlements, and trade routes carried cheese-making knowledge across Europe. Regions adapted techniques to local climates and milk sources. Cold areas favored harder, aged cheeses. Warmer regions leaned toward fresh varieties. Over time, Europe became a mosaic of cheese traditions, each shaped by geography, climate, and culture. Somewhere along this journey, cheese did more than feed people. It reshaped human biology. Regular cheese consumption reduced lactose exposure while still providing dairy nutrients. Over generations, populations that relied heavily on dairy began developing lactase persistence, the ability to digest milk into adulthood. This genetic adaptation occurred primarily in Europe and parts of Africa. Cheese did not just adapt to humans. Humans adapted to cheese. Food and biology evolved together. During the Middle Ages, cheesemaking entered a new phase. Monasteries became centers of innovation. Monks controlled temperature, humidity, and aging conditions with surprising precision. They documented processes, refined techniques, and preserved regional methods. This period saw the emergence of many classic European cheeses. Hard cheeses developed for long storage and transport. Soft cheeses remained local and seasonal. Climate-dictated technique. Knowledge passed quietly from generation to generation. Cheese became both science and tradition. For centuries, cheese remained peasant food. It was practical, filling, and accessible. Then cultural perception shifted. Regional pride formed around local cheeses. Recipes became protected. Methods were guarded. Cheese transformed from necessity into identity. In places like France, Italy, and Switzerland, cheese was no longer just food. It was heritage. It told a story about land, animals, and people. The Industrial Revolution changed cheese again. Mass production standardized flavor and texture. Cheese became affordable and global. Something was gained, and something was lost. But traditional cheesemaking survived alongside industrial methods. Today, cheese exists in two worlds, one driven by efficiency, the other by tradition. Both trace their origins back to ancient survival strategies. Cheese is not just something you eat. It is human intelligence made edible. It represents adaptation, observation, experimentation, and cultural memory. From clay pots to climate-controlled aging rooms, cheese carries nearly 9,000 years of human problem-solving. Every bite is history. Every flavor is a record of how humans learned to cooperate with nature instead of fighting it. And if this story changed how you see food even a little, then do not let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, because food is not just taste. It is survival. It is power. It is civilization. And these stories deserve to be told properly.